thank you for tuning in. Welcome back, everybody. And we are going to continue on with our study of the source field investigation by David Wilcock. So I hope you've all read chapter 1, because we're going to cover chapter 2 and 3 tonight. But I'd like to introduce my colleague, Gad Foltis, who is also a student. Is also a student of the source field investigation. So one of the things that we find in science is that we bring together a lot of pieces of a puzzle. And when we bring different separate pieces together, we start to get pictures, hopefully, and pictures that make sense. So that's what science is about, is giving meaning to matter, which inherently does not have meaning. That we bring together pieces to create order out of the disorder or entropy of the universe. So this is what we are about tonight, to bring new order to our lives, new insights, and understanding about who we are and our capabilities and potentials. So we're going to go on to chapter 2 of the source field investigation, which is called Consciousness, Eternity, and the Universal Mind, which is a follow-on from chapter 1, which, as you recall, which I hope you've read, about the Baxter effect and the ability of plants and all living creatures to be connected at higher dimensional channels, the subquantal fields that pervade all of reality, all of the universe, and carry information and will give and receive information. This has been called the morphogenetic or morphic fields. So we're going to talk about the chapter and some of the phenomena that we have to explore and investigate that doesn't make sense from a classical physics point of view. For example, in chapter 2, we begin to discuss about psychic healing that is paranormal. It does not follow the laws of physics. And Wilcock tells us about a famous healer in Mexico, Pachita, who, like many other healers, is able to put a device or an object into the patient's body and effect some change or healing. And then the wound heals up instantaneously. So this defies all logic and all classical physics. Wounds don't normally heal up that fast. So something is going on. There's an instantaneous healing that this woman, Pachita, and others are able to invoke by some property that they have, some capability.
Like John of God?
John of God is another one where he puts his hand into the body of the individual, moves it around, and then takes his hand out, and the wound is almost instantly healed. Now, Pachita, he describes, uses a very dull kitchen knife, and when this is inserted, it causes quite a bit of pain on the patient. And then when she moved the knife around, whether it's in the ear, as with Dr. Puharich, he went to visit her and he had his hearing treated. And she put a knife into his ear, moved it around, and it was very painful, brought it out, and a month later he had perfect hearing. In fact, he had hyperacusis. He was hearing better than normal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another one, Pachita cut a hole in the side of the patient. The patient needed a new kidney, and she had got a kidney from the post-mortem department for an autopsy, brought it, cut the kidney in half, and slipped half of the kidney into the hole that she had made, without any connections, without any anastomosis or surgery with blood vessels or ureters, and the kidney healed, the wound healed immediately. The patient went home back to the US and had normal kidney function. So there's definitely supernatural events being invoked through the medium of some ritual, for example, the hand or the knife. So ritual seems to be a part of this, perhaps to amplify the intention of the therapist or the healer.
So are you suggesting possibly not necessary?
So it's possibly not necessary, as Gary's saying, yeah. but most of us need a tool or a crutch in which to carry as a carrier for our intentional energy and information. So perhaps she needs that. So moving on to the next phenomenon was studies by a Dr. Grinberg, who studied Mexican shamans. And he studied so many of them, and there are quite a few. He began to realize that there was a field of consciousness. He called it the neural field, neural meaning nervous, and a field that affects everybody's nervous system, that interacts with consciousness and with matter and with brain communication. And he proposed that this came from what he called a pre-space structure field. In other words, it's below the level of physical reality. And we know from our other studies that this is, we now call this sub-quantum physics. It's down at the level of the Akashic dimensions, or 10 to the minus 20 meters, where much of these phenomena seem to emanate from. Not around 10 to the minus 9 or 10, the nanometer quantum level, but subquantal. So, and the subquantal domain seems to function in ways that we cannot possibly understand logically. Very often the opposite of logic. Yeah. So he called it a holographic, non-local lattice. So holographic meaning you get a tiny little piece of that Akashic dimension, and that is an opening for the entire universe. It can carry all the information of that little package can contain all of the information of the universe that we can tap into through our non-local device, namely the pineal, which we're going to discuss in the second part, which is chapter 3. Dr. Grinberg studied something that's quite important to all of us. He studied how people connect or communicate with other people. He would stimulate one person in one room, and a connected individual in another room would get the response, provided these two people had some kind of prior connection, entanglement, so that they were still connected even though they were separated by space. Dr. Grinberg found that it was male-female couples, loving couples, who had the most powerful connectedness. They had the strongest effect. And this was called brain coherence. And it was verified by EEG, electroencephalography. So he would put EEG wires on the recipient individual, showing that their brain responded, or by their heart. He even pulsed light into their eye and got an EEG response in the other person. Normally we do this in electrophysiology labs. If you're being studied for epilepsy, they put a pulse of light in your eye and they can pick it up from your brain. But this is from someone else's brain in another room, showing that there's an a non-local interconnectedness. But not with everybody, only with those with whom we have a connectedness. So it seems that there are varying hierarchies or level of connectedness. Although we're all one, perhaps we're all one in more ways than in other ways, so that there's deeper and lesser levels of connectedness. Which brings up the point of consciousness. If all matter is conscious, which it's connected with consciousness, but then there are areas in the universe where there is more consciousness than other areas. If this table has consciousness of a very limited form, whereas an animal, a cat or a dog or a human have a consciousness of
John,
a much higher level.
Are you suggesting that this table actually knows something that we don't know? Do you think it knows itself as a table or as consciousness?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that there are hierarchies, so at very low level of consciousness, we can affect it, but it does not have the awareness. So there's level upon level upon level of awareness, consciousness, intentionality. So it brings up the question, are we the most intentional, conscious entities in the universe?
It is possible, but I want to suggest that from Dr. Baxter's research, that plants represent very high level of consciousness, definitely capable of feeling pain, of transmitting information, to to both human beings, being connected with human beings and other living beings in the universe.
That's a good point. So it would seem that living creatures, plants, animals, are at a very much higher level than inanimate. Although this table might be wood, it no longer has the anima, or the animus, as Jung would call it. It no longer has the spirit to the extent that it did have when it was alive, when
Possibly
it was a tree.
so.
Yeah. So the question that I was put, are we the most intelligent, evolved entities in the universe?
Who's to say?
Well, let's look at the scientific evidence. Is there evidence for more intelligent beings in the universe? I think
Honorable ex-Prime Minister Deputy of Canada, Paul Hellyer,
yeah.
Just a few days ago, spoke in front of a Citizens Disclosure conference in Washington, and he said that many governments throughout the world here have been in contact with ETs and are working constantly with ETs, especially the U.S. government, as we speak right now, and have been doing it for quite a while. I suspect, or I suggest, that some of our technology is reverse engineered from ET technology, as far as my research is concerned.
Yeah, the evidence is fairly clear that there are intelligent life forms that are creating crop circles that we can't even understand.
Yeah.
So it would seem that there are other levels higher than ourselves, and even in the other dimensions, angelic dimensions. If you read again Dolores Cannon's work, the reports of many of our hypnotic clients discuss and describe experiences of being very, very intelligent beings that have set in motion our evolution, for example, that have fabricated our DNA. So I think we have put ourselves in perspective here.
Absolutely.
Another researcher who was one of my great inspirers way back in the 60s, which I know is prehistoric for many of you, was Dr. Charles Tart. He wrote the famous book, Altered States of Consciousness, which back in the 60s was a leading edge publication of that kind of work, Altered States of Consciousness. And Dr. Tart gave himself electric shocks from an electrical stimulator and found that other people were getting a heart response from the electrocardiogram. So these are things that we can test out in a simple laboratory. We have.
Were they aware of what he was doing?
Good point. Good point. Yes, They said they were not. In many cases, they were not consciously aware, which is why the instrumentation, being so sensitive, was picking up these subliminal, unconscious responses from the biology of the body without the person being aware. Yeah.
So he somehow made psychic contact with them.
He was connecting with them through these subquantal fields or morphic fields, presumably. Yeah. On page 33 of the book, Source Field Investigations, he describes Dr. William Broad, who had hypnotic patients, found that hypnotic patients in a theta state were able to transmit their feelings, and they were able to remotely control animals, control the movement of fish. He had electric fish in a tank. So with their electrical impulses, he was able to measure and monitor and record their movements because of the electric field they created. And the person could consciously or through hypnosis direct the movement of the fish. He also used gerbils, which are a small mouse. They go into a work wheel and they go round and round and round. He was able to change their activity, increase and decrease their activity. He also was able to have these hypnotic subjects have influence over red blood cells. He had red blood cells, put them in a hypertonic saline solution, which would normally destroy and damage the red blood cells. But the person under hypnosis and with the implanted instruction was able to send out protection messages that protected the DNA. So here again we have the great power of our unconscious mind when it's channeled by unusual states of consciousness. And in this case, we're talking about the theta state, not the alpha state. The theta state is down below alpha. It's around about 7 or 8 or 9 cycles per second hertz. So in that state, much healing can happen. In fact, I would say that very little healing occurs outside of the theta state. When any healers who are looking, get your client into the theta state, and your healing will be immensely more
John, can you
successful.
describe for the audience the different states and the different frequencies and a basic explanation of the different states?
Well, these frequencies are based on the brainwave or EEG frequencies. As you go down, you go into sleep state. Theta wave is, for many years, has been regarded as a state of higher consciousness. In fact, back in the 60s and 70s, theta wave monitors and theta wave biofeedback was very popular because back then people recognized the importance of the theta state rather than the alpha state, which is the state of awareness. And as you go up in frequency, you become more and more aware, even up to 40 hertz and more beyond that. There are some Buddhist monks, when they're in a deep state of concentration, can get up to beyond 40 hertz or 80 hertz. So the theta state is a very important one that we should be studying more often, and I'd like to have a presentation one evening about theta state and hypnosis and the benefits and power.
Where do we
of that state.
normally dwell?
We normally dwell around the alpha 10 to 12 hertz, the state of conscious alertness as we negotiate the world.
And what is beta?
Beta is one of the other states, gamma or delta. But next time we'll have a slide of all of the states that we may put up on our website. We have a web page. Gary will tell you about the web page you can go on to.
Yeah, it's look for www.biophysica.com/divine_physics.html.
So we're going to put more and more information, including some JPEGs, pictures, and PDFs that you can download and print out for yourself. Yeah. Another study that Dr. Broad did was the ability of some people to know they're being stared at. Not just the back of their head, but this was video camera work from one room to another. When people were looking at the monitor in the other room, the person in front of the camera had a sense of being stared at. And this was quite significant results, more than random. And the patients or people in the other room were measured using electrodermal stimulation or the galvanic skin response. That is often across the palm of the hand. It measures the electrical conductivity, which is modulated by prevailing thoughts and fields. So that's an easy study that any practitioner can do in their office. And if you're interested, get in touch with me and we can set up galvanic skin response studies to monitor your clients to see how well they are in the theta state or not. You'll see what their GSR response is to some thought of yours, and then you'll see their response. You'll know that they're in the zone, in the theta zone. Yeah. He goes on to talk about Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, one of my favorite authors. And Dr. Sheldrake likewise published a book on the sense of being stared at. That's the title of his book, The Sense of Being Stared At. And Dr. Sheldrake, as you recall, was one of the pioneers of this concept of the morphic or morphogenetic fields that entrain and control reality. How molecules will shape and form, how animals will evolve. So that's all about the morphic fields.
I incidentally went to his website just a second as you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Aaron, would you like to? Thank you. So you can speak about Rupert Sheldrake now as we're looking at his books here. Like, for example, dogs that know when their owners are coming home. New Science of Life, Morphic Resonance, and really a worthwhile endeavor, taking a look at any of Rupert Sheldrake's material.
Yes, yes. Or take a workshop with him. He often comes to Vancouver and gives workshops at some of the healing centers on the West Coast.
Yeah. So he coined the term morphogenetic fields?
I think it was there before, but he certainly made it much more popular and emphasized its importance. Yeah. We're going on to talk now. Dr. Broad collaborated with Dr. Schlitz and used electrodermal responses to demonstrate how nervous people would give rise to a higher activity of their electrodermal responses. So nervous people have a higher response, which could be slowed down and pacified by being in the presence of others with a more quieter, benign influence. So don't underestimate the effect of your presence, your benign, pacifying, healing presence around others. No matter where you go as a healer, you are affecting other people and creating peace and tranquility and healing wherever you go, whether it's in the subway station or in your office. Yeah. And the next topic that he brings up is that of psychic shielding. Very important, because many of us practitioners and healers are wide open to a lot of influences, not all of them benign. There are noxious influences around in the universe that we can pick up. So we have to be cautious and shielded. So we have to be shielded against unwanted influences. And these effects can be enhanced and amplified by certain circumstances and situations and rituals. So be careful what rituals and circumstances you get into. Even water and crystals can be carrying noxious energies that might affect you or your clients. Don't assume that everything is pure and clean and clear. It's like bacteria. There may be contamination by the bacteria and viruses of the higher dimensions, and they're quite infectious. The worst kind are from other people. People are the most important healers. They are also the most dangerous harmers. But there are amplifying vehicles that seem to be more powerful in carriers of healing energy, and crystals are known to do that. Crystals, magnetic fields, electric fields, colored light, color therapy, particularly pulsed color lights at appropriate frequencies. Magnets, like static magnets, are important. And as you recall from one of my other talks, Professor Tiller demonstrated that it was the south pole of the magnet that had the healing effect, not the north pole. So be aware of that. Use magnets, use the south pole. Make sure it's the south pole, not the north pole, because the south pole and the north pole are different. There's a south seeking pole and a north seeking pole. And we'll cover that one of the other talks, the difference between the north and south pole. And of course, we mustn't forget about sacred geometry. There are many, many sacred geometry patterns that have great power. My favorite one is the Chartres labyrinth, that 11-circled labyrinth that is in the Cathedral of Chartres, just outside of Paris. And we, Gadi and I and my community, we all use the Chartres labyrinth in our work and to protect ourselves. I have the Chartres labyrinth etched on all of my devices on the printed circuit boards, particularly my colloidal mineral generators. The electrical energy goes through the elaborate pattern of the labyrinth and then into the water. So it's carrying that pure cosmic information, because of the labyrinth, and most of these mandalas are cosmic antennas that are pulling in from the subquantum dimensions. They resonate with what's already there. And it seems that there are locks and keys. There are locks there. If we have the key with the right sacred geometry pattern, we can unlock that particular healing energy for that particular disease or cancer. So sacred geometry is actually a form of frozen vibration. It's patterns that are frozen, but yet they still work, because they they symbolically carry that healing information from the subquantal dimension or the Akashic space. I want to tell you about the Human Connection project that's mentioned at the end of chapter 2. This project, I think you'll find it on the internet, it shares intelligence, compassion, and creativity. And many hundreds of studies have shown how human consciousness can remotely affect biological and electronic systems. And some people know how their energy can affect computers, which sometimes don't work as soon as they're around them. So there are people who are radiating fields that disturb matter, not always in good ways or bad ways, but they just
computers, clocks, watches.
Clocks and watches, yeah.
I wanted to say before we move on to the commercial, there's two things that I wanted to talk about. I have been a healer for about 25 years now, and I have done at times extensive long-distance work with people who have definitely been healed from a variety of conditions over distance, and so this is absolutely proven. It's not only myself. John engages in radionics, builds radionics devices, and transmits radionics-based healing to people who have been. We just got a testimonial from one of his clients who's improved immensely. But we've had many clients improve due to radionics treatments. The other thing that I want to say is the easiest technique to shield yourself, and this is not only if you're you don't have to be a healer or anybody special. Just surround yourself with white light. Anytime you think that you need protection, Google on the internet or look into different books. There's probably hundreds of books that describe various techniques that deal with surrounding yourself with white light and shielding yourself from any kind of dangerous situations or intervention. And with that, we're ready to go to our commercial break.
Well, I just want to say a few words about influencing matter. The Heart Math Institute on heartmath.com, they have been doing for years how consciousness interacts with random generator modules. Random processes lend themselves eminently to the effects of consciousness. And there is a thing called the mind lamp, and I bought it. I have it. I should have brought it in today. I'll bring it in next time, where our consciousness affects the randomness inside, and it causes colors to change in accordance with our prevailing consciousness. That's called the mind lamp. Look it up on the internet. And that's randomness is total entropy or disorder. And it lends itself very much to the control of consciousness. So we're ready to move on to the next part now.
Yeah, we're going to take a short commercial break.
Okay, good. My name is John Stewart, president of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about Chapter 3, which is probably the most important chapter in this book, The Source Field Investigation by David Wilcock. This chapter contains a lot of information about the pineal, and I brought together, through very intense reading, a lot of more information that is not there, and some of which you have not, no one has heard of before. So there's very important information about the pineal. The pineal, in fact, is turning out to be the most important organ in the body. It does control the pituitary and all other organs, particularly the thymus, which controls the immune system through zinc. So zinc plus pineal controls the thymus, which controls the immune system, and all other organs of the body, and probably DNA, the way DNA is replicated. So the pineal gland historically was regarded as vestigial, meaning that it was a throwback from our reptilian and prehistoric past, and had no function because it was too small. People were not aware, but yet throughout history, surprisingly, the pineal has been almost worshipped, particularly in places like the Vatican. The Catholic Church has put the pineal on a very high pedestal, literally and figuratively, because in the Vatican, the front court of St. Peter's is an enormous pineal structure of a pine cone. So the pine cone was regarded and recognized as being very important way back in Egyptian times. Many of the objects held by the pharaohs and others show a pine cone representing the importance of the pineal. So they had knowledge.
Osiris as well.
Yeah.
Osiris,
yep. And they had information that has taken us thousands of years to rediscover. So where did they get their knowledge from? From higher beings who perhaps instructed them with regard to the pyramids, for example. So we now know that the pineal is about 5 millimeters, the size of a small pea. It's about 5 millimeters across, sometimes a little bigger. And it is in the exact focal point or central point of the cranial bone. The cranial bone is like a parabolic reflector, so information and noise from our voice or from chanting goes up and is focused onto the pineal gland, vibrating it. So this is why chanting is so powerful. Chanting Om at certain frequencies will vibrate the pineal and the crystals inside the pineal that I want to talk about in more detail. The pineal secretes several hormonal substances, the most well-known one being melatonin, which is the hormone of sleep. And melatonin will cause sleepiness. So when your pineal is being stimulated by any kind of external energy, such as my pineal stimulator, which is on my website, people, including myself, we feel a sense of tiredness as the melatonin is released from our activated pineal gland. And our pineal gland, just like any other organ, should be kept active. And pineal jogging, as it were. Every day we should have pineal exercises that keep the pineal, just like with our physical muscles, they have to be exercised. So the pineal gland responds to several external kinds of energies, including magnetic, electric, light, and physical vibration, including rebounding. If you rebound up and down, the pineal is being stimulated, as all the other organs are. Now, the pineal gland, when it's dysfunctional and not producing enough of its hormones, can seem to be implicated or cause a variety of disorders, including cancer, sexual dysfunction, high blood pressure, epilepsy, Paget's disease, and quite importantly, MS. Multiple sclerosis is often thought to be related to pineal dysfunction and pineal calcification. So one of the efforts to treat MS was stimulating the pineal with external magnetic fields. Way back in the 1960s, there was a research group in Budapest, Hungary, did work with MS patients, stimulating their pineal with pulsed magnetic field, or PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field, on the pineal, on the head. I don't think they knew then it was the pineal they were stimulating, but they were getting quite good results. And this knowledge should be reawakened and become more available to present-day scientists and researchers. Now, melatonin turns out to be not only the hormone of sleep, but it's also the most powerful natural antioxidant. And antioxidants, as you know, neutralize free radicals that cause cancer and cause aging. So melatonin is an anti-aging hormone. So we want to have our pineal produce natural melatonin rather than taking it exogenously, externally, because when you take a hormone externally, it tends to suppress the parent organ. So it could be in the long run quite dangerous. And this is why it was abolished. People were recommended not to take external melatonin except for very brief periods of time. So melatonin has this antioxidant power, and we want to have our pineals activated to release it. The pineal also produces the most powerful psychedelic substance known to man, DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And DMT is often being called the spirit molecule. And I'd like to draw your attention to this book by a medical doctor, Dr. Rick Strassman, who did a very comprehensive study and review of DMT and many studies with clients in the States under legal authority of the government. So this is a good book to read, The Spirit Molecule, DMT. And now the pineal releases DMT ongoingly, but sometimes sporadically, to give rise to psychotic kinds of experiences or mild feelings of euphoria, happiness, joy. Maybe that's passion. Maybe that's where our passion comes from, is the release in little bursts of DMT. It turns out that the pineal microscopically has little muscle fibers that are capable of being contracted, unconsciously contracted, to release DMT. And maybe if there's a build-up and the muscles contract, an undue amount of DMT might be responsible for sudden psychotic episodes that people often have. So DMT we also think it causes near-death experiences that are of a very psychedelic nature. DMT also elicits strong sexual excitation and orgasm, and the basis of the Tantra effect. Tantra is the spirituality of eroticism, and it's an important part of pineal function. So that's part of, when we lose our pineal function, we lose a lot of our essential joy and pleasure and satisfaction. And of course the result in that is possible depression.
So John, what do you think is the worst enemy of the pineal gland?
Well, the pineal is a sensitive organ. It has the greatest blood supply of any organ for its size in the body. So it's flooded by substances that could be causing harm. But one of the most important damaging substances we now know is fluoride, particularly sodium fluoride that's put into drinking water. It's supposed to be because of our teeth, to help our teeth. But let me read you something important about fluoride and the history of fluoride, which seems to have originated back in the Second World War. Do you have it there, the fluoride quote, by any chance? Oh yeah, here it is up here. Perhaps, well, I'll read it out. The pineal has the highest concentration of fluoride. It seems to be that organ that extracts fluoride from the body for reasons we don't know. It's associated with depressed melatonin synthesis, and the aged pineal contains more fluoride than any other normal tissue. And it causes accelerating aging. So fluoride ages us faster so that we die sooner. But let me quote you a history of fluoride. If you go onto Wikipedia on Google, you'll read the following. German chemists worked out a very ingenious, far-reaching plan for mass control of the population. It was submitted and adopted by the General Staff the general staff. The plan was to control the population through mass medication of the drinking water supply. They used fluoride to dumb down the population, make it more docile and subservient. And it's also a potent rat poison. Is also one of the basic ingredients of Prozac and sarin nerve gas. So this is all on Wikipedia. So sodium fluoride was not to benefit teeth. The real purpose was to reduce the resistance of the masses to domination and control and loss of liberty. And repeated doses of infinitesimal amounts of fluoride in time extracted into the pineal gland slowly poisons and narcotizes the population. Now, it also turns out that aluminum and mercury and lead are also toxic to the pineal gland. But aluminum and mercury are in many vaccines. So,
thank you. It's really good to know that one needs to avoid fluoride if you want to stay healthy and young and feel vibrant, I guess.
It turns out that if you get RO water, tap water can be filtered through an RO, reverse osmosis process, removing all of those dangerous chemicals in fluoride. And I've checked it out. We use reverse osmosis at home. If you want to drink it like a drink, then you should really add like Himalayan salt, which has all the trace minerals that we need.
I wanted to add also that many natural foods, health stores have non-fluoride toothpaste, so you can replace your regular fluoride-based toothpaste, which is quite harmful, with natural toothpaste that will not damage your pineal gland.
Okay. I want to move on now to the most important revelation that has come up in my studies. Even this afternoon, I discovered more and more. It's about the pineal crystals, and I'm going to get Gad to put up on the screen some pictures of these pineal crystals. If you go onto Google, you'll find there's an article showing these microscopic crystals. They are between 2 and 20 microns in size. They're very small, and they are made of calcite. Calcite is it's a transparent form of chalk, or calcium carbonate. So it's very pure, only carbon, calcium and oxygen. But it's not like chalk, it's not white like chalk, it's clear. Calcite is a clear crystal that has been used for many, many decades in science. So these clear little crystals are around 2 to 20 microns. Be aware that a human hair is 100 microns. So this is a fifth of the thickness of a human hair. They're so small that like dust. So these dust-like crystals float around inside little cysts, so-called cysts. Doctors thought, well, these are cysts of the pineal, they shouldn't be there, little water-filled blisters. But in fact, these are the inner eye of the pineal. And these little inner eye crystals can sometimes be damaged because they get a covering of other substances like fluoride and apatite that render them non-functional. So we want to have our little crystals functioning. But the most surprising revelation here is that this little dust particles embedded in the gel-like liquid inside the 5 or 4 millimeter cyst. These form a screen, a three-dimensional screen. And on the inside of the cyst are all the rods and cones of the inner eye, because the pineal has rods and cones just like the retina, but they're all pointing inwards, looking into this three-dimensional TV screen.
Are you suggesting that this is actually, the pineal is actually a physical eye? A complete physical eye?
Exactly, and this I only came to this realization a couple of days, the full significance of this. This is the inner eye, and the inner eye is looking inside to the three-dimensional TV screen of these microparticles. So these, more importantly, these crystals are not only piezoelectric, but more importantly, they're piezoluminescent. And look up piezoluminescence on Google, you'll see that calcite and tryptophan and tryptamine, some of the precursors, are themselves piezoluminescent. When they are impacted with energy, physical or otherwise, they give rise to light photons. So they're giving a picture. So there's an inner picture, perhaps, with our inner retina. So there may be elaborate pictures being created on our inner TV set inside these cysts. And certainly light is created inside, and we get a sensation of light, particularly when the Kundalini energy, with many meditators, the Kundalini energy rises up from the sacral area, the coiled serpent rises up to all of the chakras one by one, and hopefully all of our chakras are clear so that the Kundalini energy goes right up to the pineal and activates these crystals, and then you see a light. So they say that's right, seeing the light. And the light can be white light. In the case of some of the more eminent meditators like Muktananda, he reported seeing a blue light. Others have Gopi Krishna as another authority on Kundalini energy. Now, Muktananda said that the energy not only goes to the pineal or the third eye, and then opens our third eye, but he said some of it comes back down into the heart chakra, so that we benefit in terms of compassion. You sometimes feel your heart chakra opening. This is because that energy has come all the way down and residing in the heart. I don't know if it goes all the way down again and creates a circuit. It's possible, but I don't know. Yep.
Possibly so. So before we move on to talk about some of your devices that have to do with the pineal, can you speak in a general way about the significance of the pineal gland to spiritual evolution?
Well, I think the pineal is probably the most important of the transducers, the receiving and perhaps transmitting transducers. There are others like the microtubules proposed by Hameroff and Penrose, for example, and maybe DNA and other intricate devices inside biological systems that are transmitters and receivers of subquantum energy and information and healing, and all of the other benefits of the subquantum dimension. Does that answer the...
Yeah, it has become synonymous with the third eye, has it not?
The third eye, because historically they realized that there was an inner eye, an inner wisdom. Information was coming. Well, that brings another point. Interestingly, there are similar crystals called otic crystals in the ear. So is it possible that there's an inner ear that hears information and hearing voices through our otic crystals, and seeing visions through our pineal?
So an equivalent hearing mechanism.
An equivalent auditory download. And we know people do hear voices, sometimes of a benign nature, sometimes not.
Let me ask you a question. When we're dreaming, do you think we're actually experiencing what's happening inside the pineal gland? Or when you have visions with our eyes closed?
Well, something is creating these pictures in our occipital cortex, where the visual cortex is an immense area. Something is generating them, so it has to be some kind of device like this that's generating. And maybe it's a lot more elaborate than we could possibly imagine. You know.
But there's nothing else in the brain, no other apparatus that has rods and cones, right? Other
than the retina, no. But maybe the rods and cones of the retina, as we are asleep, maybe they are also picking up.
Okay.
But no, because they are only receptors. You need the crystals. You need the microcrystals to have the piezo-luminescent transmutation.
So it's quite possible that the pineal gland is the gateway to experiencing consciousness outside of our physical being.
Yes, and it's very clear that a damaged pineal that's covered, where the crystals are covered over by other crystalline material, which is not the innate crystals, microcrystals. So there's two kinds of crystallization. There's the benign one that we need, and then there's the damaging crystallization from aging and faulty diet and other effects. Yeah.
So can you speak about some of your technology that's directly related to the pineal gland?
I told you about the Galing Bordak's Hungarian work with magnetic fields. I continue on to do that work. I now have magnetic stimulators that will activate the pineal. I also have the Alzheimer's helmet, where infrared pulses can go down in the cleft between the two hemispheres, and some of that infrared pulsed light can go down into the pineal. The wavelength has to be 1.072 micron in wavelength of infrared light to penetrate right down. And I've invented and have these devices available. Yeah. Now, another thing we should talk about is TMS, which is a powerful pulse of energy, which again has healing effects. It's supplanted electrical shock treatment of the old days. So now we use magnetic pulse treatment as an antidepressant. And Gad is going to find the work done at Columbia and other universities where.
I'll post this on the website, but I now have the transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yeah, this is how it works.
Image.
Yeah. Right
here on the screen.
There's a coil that is pulsed with a very high energy pulse through a bank of capacitors. In my case, I use about 100 microfarads with about 2,000 volts. That goes through the coil, and it puts out repetitive bursts at different frequencies right into the brain. And people have reported after a half-hour treatment, you don't feel anything, it's painless, some alleviation of their depression. The best pulse rate turns out to be about 5 pulses per second. My machine it scans through a range of frequencies, including 5 up to about 40, so that we scan a wide range of cells in the human brain. So that's the TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation.
You told me that just a few weeks ago, one of your clients who has this device healed himself from tinnitus?
Yeah, tinnitus. Yeah,
tinnitus.
Someone had severe tinnitus, someone in another country, and I shipped a unit to him, and he found that it helped his tinnitus where nothing had helped after years of trying. So it's, I think it probably reboots the brain in some way, just like electric shock treatment did. When you put the paddles across the brain or the paddles across the heart, it reboots the organ in that it creates a state of coherence and simultaneous contraction and activation through those organs. So when the brain, if enough magnetic energy will cohere enough cells together so that they're pulsing in synchrony and harmony, then that will bring about normal function, rebalance the function of the brain, undoubtedly through the pineal and maybe through the pituitary. We're beginning to learn more about the pineal, the spiritual aspects of the pineal and the pituitary, and I don't want to totally neglect the pituitary because it's a part of the system, and also the hypothalamus. And another important, probably other second most important organ is the hippocampus in the brain, which is the organ of memory. Now, in Alzheimer's, people lose their memory. Is that because of the hippocampus not working, or the pineal, or both together not connected? A disconnection between the pineal and the hippocampus, perhaps.
John, I'm on your website right now, and I see this device. It's called electrical scalp stimulator. Can you talk about this?
Yeah. It turns out that when you put electrostatic pulses and electromagnetic pulses and light pulses, they will rejuvenate any cell. All cells of the body will respond beneficially to these kinds of energies that are transdimensional. They're light, and all of those are partly in another dimension. So we're bringing these spiritual dimensions into healing. And most cells will respond to healing, even people who have grown new teeth. However, when the energy goes through the scalp, the hair follicles of the scalp respond, and they start growing. Dormant hair follicles start to grow, and with this kind of technology and this device, you prevent baldness and hair. Like I am a client as well as the inventor. I've been treating myself for 20 years. I'd probably be bald by now if I hadn't been exposing my scalp to almost daily treatment of these electrical and magnetic energies. So you can feel the hair follicle being stimulated, because the base of every hair follicle has a little muscle called the erector pili. So they go into spasm when the electrical pulses go down. So it increases the lymphatic drainage and the blood flow and the hormonal balance of the hair follicles. You know.
Do you, where do you sell this device? Who uses this device?
Well, it's on my website if you want to find information about it, and you can email me or give me a phone call if you have any questions about it. You know,
sure, I'd like to restore my pineal gland and maybe some
definitely.
hair.
Yeah, we should all be aware of the pineal, because if you don't, the results can be disastrous. MS, cancer, Alzheimer's. So we have the means, to some extent, within our power to activate, to decalcify, number one, to activate and keep it active, a pineal gland. Yeah.
John, this is probably a good time to
yeah, I think we've reached the hour mark now.
Yeah.
So please, you're going to say.
You might want to talk about the next chapter.
Yeah, the next chapter is chapter 4 of the book. I haven't read it yet, but I will do it as part of my homework. So I hope you will do the homework and read chapter 4. And we might also do chapter 5. So do chapter 4 for sure. Thinking with the field in the great cycles of life. Very good. So thank you all for showing up. And please, any of you who want to come as audience, you're welcome to come here to the studio and be part of the audience and interact conversationally.
And where can people connect with you? Is there a website?
Yeah, on my website, biophysica.com. And the page that's specific to this is divine_physics.html. So thank you all, and we'll hopefully see you 2 weeks from now.
Thank you very much.
My name is John Stewart, President of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804.